they're all very.
Está en la silla principal, ¿verdad, doña Marcela?
Because everybody went. It's o'clock. Sorry, it's just been.
Where you guys?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, why don't we get started? It's just about 6 o'clock. So thanks for being here tonight and our audience. And we have a very special evening to get us going to recognize our Citizen of the Year today. So before we do that, let's pledge of allegiance, please.
La bandera allá
The
atrás.
flag is in the back. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. And consistent with what we have adopted here in Wood Village for the last, I would say about 2 years now, is a land acknowledgement statement to the Grand Round indigenous people that lived here prior to the settlement by the white Europeans moving west. So Wood Village Land Acknowledgement Statement. The Chinookan peoples known as the Clackamas and Cascades are the indigenous people of the land now inhabited by the city of Wood Village and other areas of the Columbia River. The village of Nachitle was located today near Blue Lake Park. Ancestral life of these people included seasonal round of resource gathering and stewardship from the Wapato fields and fishing areas of the Columbia River to the Cedar and Huckleberry gathering areas in the High Cascades. Introduced as these from early settlers dramatically reduced the number of these people. They signed the Willamette Valley Treaty in 1855 with the United States government and were forcibly removed to the Grand Ronde Indian Reservation. We thank the descendants of these tribes for being the original stewards and protectors of these lands since time immemorial. We also acknowledge the systematic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many indigenous Native American families today. We are honored by the collective work of the many Native nations, leaders, and families who are demonstrating resilience, resistance, revitalization, healing, and creativity. We are honored to be guests upon these lands. Next item on the agenda will be our presentation. Yes, excuse me. Citizens' comments, please. Yes. Yeah, please.
Adelante,
Please.
por favor.
Yeah.
Acompáñenla, acompáñenla.
Mi nombre es Marcela Montiel y mis compañeras pertenecemos a un grupo de rurales y hemos trabajado junto con la comunidad de Wood Village perdón.
So I'll just help out. So her name's Marcela Montiel. She is a part of the Natural Leader Groups along with her colleagues, and they partnered with the City of Wood Village in variety of projects.
Claudia, y ha dado una buena relación. Hemos colaborado juntos COVID y también hemos participado trabajando juntos con la ciudad.
So she mentions that they've worked on various projects, COVID response, cultural responsive events, and they are honored to have partnered with the city and hope to continue the collaboration.
También sabemos, hemos venido porque liderazgo y quisiéramos invitarlos a un evento el 2 de partida de rosca organizaciones con las que he trabajado.
So they also understand that there's new leadership and they would like to invite the new leadership to a celebration of breaking bread on February 2nd, which is customary to the Rosca de Reyes that happens on January 6th. The city was fortunate to receive one of the little figures that is in that bread. And so in response to that, they are they are responsible to pitch into this culturally responsive. It's another festivity. So it usually happens on the 2nd of February. And so they're inviting the city council and management to be a part of that.
Wonderful, yes.
The first, let me just say something, and certainly other counselors, but if we can, Harold, if you can do that, take care of the interpretation here for us, but I do want the natural leaders to understand that we appreciate all you do, and especially reaching out to us tonight with the new leadership, as you recognized. And we do believe that it's people like you in our city that allow us to engage more people. And that's what we want to do. We want to do it intentionally and we want to do it consistently.
So voy a presentar, él es el nuevo mayor, John Miner, y él le agradezco mucho que hayan venido esta noche, reconociendo el nuevo liderazgo, que él les aprecia mucho por el trabajo que han hecho en la comunidad y dice que grupos y gente como ustedes hace que también la ciudad quiera trabajar en la comunidad y lo hace posible con el esfuerzo de ustedes. So les agradece mucho que hayan venido hoy esta noche a invitarnos porque pues ese es el paso de una colaboración grande.
Por amor a la comunidad y porque comunidad más segura.
So she says that they do it for the love of their community and because they want a safer community.
And comments from the rest of the council, but before we leave, we need to get the location and the time. So
I'll work on getting
Okay.
that and
Thank
make
you.
sure that we get an email to you also, reminders, and get everything set up. So
excellent.
Dice que Greg va a conectarse para identificar el tiempo y el lugar de donde pasar.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias, thank you.
De Rita Reyes igual. Hemos sí ayudado cuando hay vacunas. Pero también ayudamos a las comunidades cercanas.
So she just reiterates that she's part of this group, but not only do they help and serve the city of Wood Village, but they also serve and help our neighboring cities. So Troutdale. So some of them are Troutdale residents, some of them are Fairview residents. So this is kind of base, but they certainly reach the whole East County.
Thank you.
Thank you
I'm really
very
looking
much for
forward to
being here
it.
this
Thank
evening.
you.
And
Muchas gracias por su tiempo.
Gracias.
Gracias. Hasta luego.
Gracias.
well, that was nice, wasn't it? The next item now is our opportunity to recognize our Citizen of the Year. So if you'll you're gonna go,
Something to
yeah,
put up on the
all right. So as we're recognizing Amarjet Kaur tonight and her husband, we have prepared for them and for our audience that's watching on the network, the presentation and the recognition for them. So. Well, is there more here?
Present the award, which includes an individual plaque, and then we have a perpetual plaque over there that will get your photo on, so it'll be up there for forever. And as part of the acknowledgement, there'll be an upcoming newsletter article about all your works and contributions over 30 years of being in the community. And lastly, as another just token, we call it a Taste of Wood Village. So there's several gift cards to different Wood Village restaurants. So you can take your husband out for dinner.
And there are a number of gift cards in there, and the council will be included here. So, and I
I'm the council.
And I know you know other, if you- And I promised them they did not have to stay for the rest of the meeting. But again, thank you for 30+ years in our city.
Hey, Greg.
All right, Greg, I think you're up with oh, John is.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. All right, man. We thought I-
Thank you. Evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Tonight we have the presentation. Financial audit for the fiscal year that ended in June of 2022. And with us tonight is Tiffany from our auditor, Polly Rogers Company, and she's going to do the presentation for you.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm Tiffany Elram. I'm a manager with Polly Rogers. So I'm going to present the 21-22 audit report, and I'll be going over the governing body letter, and this summarizes the audit report as a whole. So on page 1 of the board letter, we discussed the purpose of the audit. For the city, we focused on performing a financial statement audit and a compliance audit required by Oregon minimum standards. And then if you move to page 2 of the board letter, we discussed the results of the audit. The city had an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, meaning we gave a clean opinion. For the state minimum standards, we found no exceptions or issues requiring comment, except noted on page 109 of the report. And then also no separate management letter was issued, meaning we had no complications with management in order to perform a successful audit. And then in the significant audit matter section, for the corrected and uncorrected misstatements, we found none that were beyond trivial. And this just means that we were able to trace all the financial numbers back to the original sources. And overall, the audit went very well, and that's due to all the hard work from Seth, Yelena, and Becky, and the rest of the staff. And we appreciate working with them every year. And so that concludes my comments in regards to the audit. Did anyone have any questions?
Council?
No, Mayor.
Questions?
No questions.
Well, Seth, congratulations. It's nice to have that audit done and certainly the comments from our auditor. So thanks for your work on that.
Thank you, and thank you guys for being the fiscal agents of the city.
Yeah. We do try to take that role seriously, and that helps. And so no other questions? Thank you. Thank you for being with us tonight and for your work with us as our auditor.
Yes, of course.
All right. I'm getting a little mixed up on this agenda, as you can tell. We're on the resolution for
CDBG.
yeah, all right, thank you.
I'll pull it up here for John.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors. I'm here to present a presentation on Resolution 3-2023, Donald Robertson Park Enhancement Project. You should have the staff report and resolution in your council packet. Giving a little background, this project is to add amenities to Donald Robertson Park. Some picnic tables, barbecues, concrete pads, ADA concrete. Spruce up the northeast corner backstop on the ball field and remove the southwest backstop and fencing to that ball field. We were awarded a CDBG grant funding in the amount of $79,000. What is that? So I think I've explained in the past, every other year between Fairview and Wood Village, we alternate submitting projects. And so we were awarded $79,000 for this project.
John, I forgot. What does CDBG stand for?
Community Development Block Grant.
Thank you.
So an RFP was posted. We did receive 3 qualified bids. Paul Brothers, Inc., Lee Brothers, and Kirby Nagelhout. Again, the scope of the project here, barbecue pits, additional picnic tables, removing some of the old outdated picnic tables, removing the bleachers at the northeast ball field, sprucing up the fencing and backstop, concrete pathways, and again, maybe charcoal ash dispenser, because that is charcoal is flammable. We want some kind of container to dispose those. Bless you. So with the lowest qualified bid came in at 118,000, just over. We are going to remove part of the scope, which is just a minor scope, is the removal of the southwest corner backstop in the amount of $10,000. So total bid is 108.58. Total park capital allocations are over 339,000. What is the budget impact? So the approved budget for this project was $110,000. If we take the allocations from the $5,000 in allocations from the park capital, you come up with $115,000. This project, park funds will be $36,000 and CDBG funds will be $79,000. This covers city goals 1 and 6. There are some alternatives that we can, depending on what council chooses. You can approve this resolution as presented, take no action and opt out, therefore forfeiting the CDBG funding, rebid in spring, which will reduce the project window if we're, the goal is to complete by June 30. And with construction costs rising, it is staff's recommendation that alternative 1 is to approve this resolution. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Questions from council? Yes.
I'd like to just make a statement. I can remember back when I was on the council the last time during our retreat that we were discussing this particular item. in what type of containers that we would purchase to avoid having fires and got really down to the brass tacks of buying this particular type of equipment in the park. I can remember you presenting all of these things to us at that time. And so it's really great to see the fruition of this coming to my second council meeting. This is phenomenal. So
Well, Counselor Clark, you know, you can take credit for this then, you know, when you showed up, we finally got it done.
I don't need to do that. I'm just saying that it's really good to see that this is coming. Well, you probably have seen this is what I'm getting at. And so it's great to see it. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, that's.
And it does take time to see these
There's-
things get here. That's the other part of
Yeah,
that.
you gotta keep at it and.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it, but kind of what's the timeline for the completion
Before June 30.
before
Yeah.
June 30th?
Yes. Yes. As soon as we get approval here, we're gonna, we'll start, the contracts. And as soon as we get the contract in place, we'll get started.
And I
And
think.
Paul Brothers, that name is familiar. They've been doing some work around for us before.
Not that I'm aware of. No,
Okay.
no,
Out of Eugene, right? According to,
they are.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the longer lead times will be like the tables, the barbecue pits that, it used to be, you can get them in a few weeks. It may be, 10, 12 weeks, but that's still nice within a June 30 window. So most likely they'll work on the dirt work portion of it and then set the new furnishings. And, a nod to Council President Rios Campos, part of the discussion is not just replacing picnic tables in kind or ADA, but also looking at the size of them to accommodate larger family gatherings that, more than 4 people. So we heard that, and that's why, we're looking into that as far as the furnishings themselves, making sure they can accommodate all users and guests.
And amenity improvements is listed in our Parks Master Plan under capital improvements.
No, I think the timing is perfect because it's right before the summer when we saw last summer was heavily utilized. And so I think that just kind of prepares for that utilization again. So.
Great. There's no further questions or discussion. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve resolution 3-2023, authorizing the city manager to award the Donald L. Robertson Park Enhancement Project to Paul Brothers, Inc., not to exceed $115,000.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
You
No
can't
opposed.
second, just a question.
I didn't.
No, but-
Well, I guess I could, yes,
Oh.
but I
Just process.
will probably not do that.
Okay.
All right. Unless you guys just.
No, I just
Don't
didn't
say
know. I
anything.
was like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Okay, John, thank you very much. That's gonna be, we finished that one. That's gonna be a great improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very exciting.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
Oh, you guys, I got 4 helpers up here. so-
I'm not much help.
Yeah, no, this will work out. We'll get a little bit smoother here. Let's start reading my agenda. We are, Greg, you are presenting the wage compensation analysis.
I am. Well, I'm
Okay.
gonna try. So, thank you, Mayor.
And by the way, there isn't, after this, we do have an action item related to this wage.
It's incorporated all in the
presentation.
presentation. So it's kind of a presentation on the analysis, which is in your packet. And then there is a staff recommendation, which is in the form of the resolution. So let's walk through the analysis. So first, why do we do this? Well, one, you told us we have to every 3 years. It's in your council policy 6.
Every 30 years?
3.
Oh, 3.
Yeah, 30 is that'd be a little long. Every 3 years. And, sometimes it goes a little off cycle depending on when our contract negotiation is coming up. So for example, our current contract expires 5. So in about 2 years, we'll be doing an update to this one. But right now, it's on the 3rd-year cycle for a comprehensive one. It's another thing, it's just a good thing to do to make sure that we're having fair and competitive wages, benefits that attract, retain our team members. And while wages are, a piece of the overall puzzle in terms of culture, benefits, in establishing why people want to work for someplace and stay someplace. It's a fairly large puzzle piece. So what does it do? Well, it helps, review the compensation for similar positions in similar organizations. And we'll talk shortly about what a similar organization and positions are. For us, we include the wages, healthcare, contributions to an HSA or VEBA, contributions to retirement account. We look at then paid time off, whether it's PTO, separate health, vacation. We try to do kind of all-inclusive compensation package. While we tend to look at things like uniform allowances and those ancillary things are not included in this report, we tend to use that just when we're looking at union bargaining. For the purpose of this, we're looking essentially wages, key benefits. We look at then that gross take-home pay. So we take, what are the wages? We then look at what is, the city's cost for the wages and benefits. And then we look at what that employee can take home, pre-tax, all the other maybe ancillary deductions to see kind of what's their pay, then what do they ultimately take home. We organize it by position and years on the job. And for this analysis, we did years 1, 3, and 5, kind of setting that, starting off to, midpoint. And while we did that, it gets trickier as some organizations have 12 or 14 steps to their wage scales you saw in the report. Ours is barely, compressed and you can get through it in about 5. So that's why we picked 1, 3, and 5. And we do make a number of assumptions in analyzing positions, how close of a match are they? How close are relative duties? And again, we're just looking at how competitive our compensation is. So for similar positions, just because a position has the same title or similar title, doesn't mean it's the same position at all. Luckily, we comp pretty close on like utility workers, front end office work. So maybe they're, doing accounts for a court, but we're doing accounts for utility billing. Those are close. You can comp those. Where it gets trickier, especially for our organization of size, is that middle level where we're specializing, like in engineering tech. A lot of cities our size don't have one. They don't have that need. They may have a different need that then we don't have. And we'll get to that shortly. There are 4 positions we need to find an alternative method to just evaluate that compensation. But in general, we look at skills, knowledge, abilities, level of education, supervision, exercised and received, and then just, again, those core job functions and tasks to get to. They may not be the same apples, but, a Granny Smith to a Gala or a yellow, delicious. We're trying to get apples here. No oranges in the bushel. So how do we select our comparable cities? Well, a good starting point is the Public Employee Collective Bargaining Act, or PECBA. You actually use that in collective bargaining as your comparator. So we figure if it's good enough for union bargaining, it's good enough for us. That act actually stipulates the next 5 highest and lowest in population compared to your city. We actually reach out to the next 10. We do that so we hope to get 10 responses total. And you saw we received 9. So we reached out to 20, you get 9 back. Actually, we did get 10 back, but one we just got back 2 days ago, Friday, I think. So we couldn't use it in the analysis. We also then pull from Troutdale and Fairview. And, it's good to do that to get some regionality. I'll show you the map of our comparators. Some of them are near-ish smaller metropolitan areas around the state, Eugene, Salem, but being in the Portland metro is a whole different animal, whole different game in terms of competition, expertise, skills, knowledge, abilities needed. So we pull in Troutdale and Fairview to get that regional sense. And I asterisked Fairview because about a week ago, when we were wrapped up with our work, they completed their union negotiations, approved a new contract, which they did a broad spectrum of changes ranging from 2% to 17%. And, since it wasn't across the board, it was individual position. We couldn't go back and easily comp that and update the positions. They just did it in their wage scale. So we didn't have time to include that, but just, we want to let you know that they have moved on the wages that you see in the report here. They're different now as of like a week and a half ago. So on the map, that's also in the report, you see where our comparators are dotted out there, again, along the 5 corridor. The other comparator cities tend to be along the Oregon coast, which can have, some different influences and factor based on what is the work demand, the work level of some of those more isolated regions of our state. So we like to think, while we only got 9 responses, that they're pretty good. They're clustered around, the Salem area, Eugene area, they're pretty good. So we're able to cover these positions. We got enough responses to make accurate statements about our whole utility workforce. Our office assistants 1 and 2, our office assistant 2, those are 3 separate positions. So we have, that's our building tech, permit tech, our accounts payable, and then our community outreach and engagement specialist. So those 3 positions fall under that same title. And then our director level positions were able to be comped. So a few more just things to throw out there. So base wages, whether it was hourly or monthly salary, we classed it per month and we did that 20/80 hours. So that's assuming you work 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. We're on a 980 schedule. It doesn't really matter. It flushes out in the end, but we did it based on a 20/80 work year. Again, for the annual cost, that's our cost of an employee at years 1, 3, and 5, inclusive of medical. So that's our employer cost of medical. And then for the employee take home, that was, those monthly wages for a year, less their contributions, their monthly contributions to medical or other benefits. And why that's important, you'll see that while our base wages are above the average, when you back out then their contributions to medical, it for some positions falls a little slightly less than average, but pretty close to average. And that's because we have for our insurance, we go through City County Insurance Services, CIS. It's what a lot of cities in Oregon use, especially smaller ones or, ones that don't self-insure. And we have the best plans that you can get with them. Other cities have moved away from those plans to more high deductible plans, $10,000 deductible, $5,000 deductible. So it loads the monthly cost, but there's a deductible, but maybe they're funding some sort of HSA or VEBA. But that's why ours tends to be a little less than, because we have a nice, I think, balance of cost share between that monthly cost for the city and our employees. Now, it is different for our union members. They get health coverage through the union and it's a composite rate. So whether it's a single person or family, it's the same rate and it's a fairly low monthly wage compared to the city's plan. And the city's plan and our comparators, we just said, we based on the full family plan. So you could have an individual paying for just individual coverage. Their take home would look different than say if they had on the full family plan. But we tried, again, keeping apples to apples, just comped it at the highest premium level.
Greg, I have a question on this. As you've been doing this, always in salaries, the benefit package is really important to cost it out for the employer.
Mm-hmm.
As you're talking to our staff here, is this where they want to be? They accept that they're going to have less take home, but more benefit package?
I'd like to answer yes. I'll kind of look to my wings here to verify. I mean, I think, would people like a lesser reduction from the healthcare cost? Sure. That's partly why the union members went with union coverage. I can't attest to the quality of service, of that union coverage. I can say that for them, the city provided coverage, like I said, it's the top plan you can get with the low deductible, low out of pockets.
Yeah. Well,
And it's variable because people tend not to use medical, then they're fine with a low cost, high deductible plan. But if you have people with family or kids that are more prone to use it, then having our plan, which is like Kaiser is no deductible and the other plan is 250 deductible.
For individual.
Which is unheard of. So it is a higher cost, but there's a fine mix. We did review kind of health plan options, but that was a few years ago and we have had a lot of staff turnover. But there's always that balance between pocket costs and
for those that have used it, they seem to really, really value it.
Yeah.
Maybe get your annual checkup.
Yeah, and that is always there. Generally in organizations, there are some people that when that package is such that it affects your take home pay too. Really, I just was wondering if there is contention here with just the fact here that we're that some people might feel like they with like a different option.
It'll probably be something in a couple of years when we're evaluating the cost. One thing we try to do with the union plan is keep it a reasonable cost share. And one thing we said we would do is essentially cost out what the city would have paid versus what the city did pay in terms of that union coverage to make sure that that share, that split is equitable to then a non-composite rate share plan. And maybe even you can reevaluate what that share looks like. Because we did it a few years ago and it was very much, we value the selection of two different providers and the flexibility to go to different doctors. And again, if people had used the plan, they really saw the power of the plan. So
If the spread grows, then it's probably going to be time to
reevaluate something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
But that's not, I don't think we're not there now. Even some of our newer team members haven't
Okay,
mentioned.
that's fine.
We
But
haven't heard anybody really mention any concerns about
Okay.
it.
I think what we have heard is it's choosing between the plans isn't necessarily based on cost. It's whether or not they like that particular provider, Regions versus Kaiser.
Mhm.
And their
Yeah,
experience in
that's
the
been,
past.
and people have not had like the choice because some are like, I love Kaiser and some are like, I love Regions. Some are like, I hate insurance.
Give me the cash.
Oh, and actually, speaking of that, I said in jokingly, but we do actually, if you have coverage through like a spouse or a partner, we do have an opt-out for coverage that returns, a little bit amount to the employee every month.
Excellent. Thank you.
So these are positions not included. So we did include our groundskeeper. I'll touch on that in a second. Then our accountant, engineering tech, management analyst, and public works supervisor. Two of those positions, the management analyst and public supervisor, are pretty new. And we're still defining that relationship and making sure that we're, for the tasks that they're doing or will be doing as that position matures, is compensated appropriately, both internally to our scale and then externally, in our world here. It's been very hard over the years to actually get a good sense for our accountant and engineering tech positions because cities our size don't tend to have separate positions, or they're a little too different to accurately comp. And so we'd like to find ways to try to comp those four positions, not using the PECBA model, essentially, is what we'll have to do. For groundskeeper, we've had difficulty filling it over the past couple of years. Most of you are aware of that. There's been a lot of competition for, very entry-level wages. So even though it pays more than minimum and, the exceptional benefit package, people looking for cash in their pocket, we can't compete with, Amazon, FedEx, those types. And so what we found out is we just hired on as utility one focused on grounds, and that has been successful. So we're not actually looking to fill groundskeeper for the foreseeable future, hence also why it wasn't comped. Want to talk about cost of living adjustments, something that I'm sure you've heard about, both in the news and otherwise. So COLA, cost of living adjustment, is there are a lot of ways to measure that. Ours is the All Cities CPIU, and that's the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners, all cities around the country. That's in our collective bargaining agreement. That's what the union settled on. When we used to have a Portland-based one, and then the Bureau of Labor Statistics got rid of that one. So we had to pick a new one. And as we tracked over, decades, whether it's, CPIU, all cities, major cities, even now, the newest one, which I think it's Western cities, which included like San Diego, LA, San Francisco. That was really scary when it first came out. They all actually tend to start balancing out given any period of decent time, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. But we use all city CPIU, and we have a floor and a ceiling of 2 to 4%. That was implemented in 2012. Prior to that, it was at actual CPI, and that was back when it was the Portland-based one. But we changed that in 2012 at the request of the union after the 2008 recession, when CPI was 0. They wanted a floor above 0. We said, well, then we're putting in a ceiling. And that has worked until it didn't, because we didn't see inflation like we've seen in near 40 years, like we've seen the past couple of years. So last year, the actual was 7.5%. This year, put 7, it's going to be 6.8, it call it around 7. So in the last 2 years, all wages, everything staying equal, lost 6.5% of their buying power. On top of that, starting January 1st, the state's new Leave Act law, the employee has to pay 0.6% of their, payroll to that leave bank, and that's, they didn't make it pre-tax. So, I mean, that's off your wages. So a couple of compounding things have happened here that I think had the CPI been, 5%, 4.5%, that would balance out over a period. We've got a pretty good gap building here that we want to address, which is why there's the recommendation, I'll touch on it shortly, of doing a one-time mid-year COLA adjustment. Part of that is to recognize, the loss over the couple of years, but also this will come up in a couple of years when we go to the union for negotiations. If we don't make adjustments now, there will be adjustments made, and we're trying to even that out and not get some spikes. We're seeing from very large organizations going through collective bargaining now, actually rejecting 12% COLA adjustments. So, we think 6.5, making up just for the kind of that loss is a decent strategy, just to, again, keep everything kind of flat and avoiding spikes. Also want to touch on, cell phone allowances and then healthcare coverage for non-married couples that are actually registered domestic partners. So one thing that we looked at, especially now with remote work, cell phone allowances. So we provide our field team with city provided cell phones on a city plan. But for example, people working from home that have our app that connects to their office phone, that's on their phone, that's on their plan. People going out in the field for code enforcement, building enforcement, engineering stuff, taking pictures, that's on their own phone. So there's half a dozen or so positions we felt it would be meaningful, equitable, reasonable, responsible to allow a cell phone allowance, understanding we are benefiting from their private device. It would be a $15 monthly one. So we're talking about $1,000 a year, which is dramatically less than trying to, buy cell phones and put them on a city plan than 2 phones and this and that. The other thing that has come up over the past, several years as registered domestic partners. We haven't brought this to council in probably over a decade when that was a larger discussion before same-sex marriage was in place and everything else. And this isn't just for same-sex couples, it's for just all couples choosing not to get married in that sense, but just a registered domestic partnership, have asked about coverage and why we don't offer coverage for that. And then it finally came to, well, we actually haven't brought that back to council in some time. And so again, that is part of the recommendation, is to allow at our next request for coverage, that's every year when we renew our insurance benefits, who can be eligible to allow registered domestic partners. CIS does allow that. You can opt into that. So it's not just, I've got a live-in partner. It has to be the registered domestic partnership. Questions on anything so far? Just want to take a moment to breathe.
I think that's just that's being responsible there as an employer, is to allow that. Because again, folks, with new day and age, just find other means to have a happier life, might prefer to have a registered domestic partner.
Sure.
And allowing for coverage for them. I mean, I think that's huge. I think that's a huge.
I kind of thought we were already doing that.
I did too.
No, it was a very much, when I said we brought it, over a decade ago, it's probably 12 years ago or better. The council leadership at that time was an adamant, absolutely not. And,
Really?
And then it was, we never brought it back. And it was just kind of one of those things to say that's kind of floats out there when someone brings it up every few years, like, oh, we should ask, but then it flutters away or people change.
Well, I'm glad you brought it back.
Yeah, I'd like to
Needs
thank
to be in
the
the
team for using this as an opportunity as we're looking at our total cost of compensation benefit package. Like, let's ask that question. So under recommendations, so we don't need to make any structural adjustments for the positions comp. They're right in line, right on average, adjusting for even, some of the healthcare costs. We feel they're right where they should be, where they need to be. We do want to look at those 4 other positions over the next, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, because again, some of them, our accountant, engineering tech, we know what they do. We have a good basis of that skill set. So those could be comped easier than some of the brand new ones that we're still kind of defining that workload, that skill level. We would like to make a one-time COLA adjustment of 6.5%. And then the $15 a month cell phone stipend. And then allowing the registered domestic partnership for coverage on our next RFQ. We can't make mid-year changes. And so it would be next January when that would be effective. because they do the requests in, I think, August time. So what's the yeah, as you can see, we've got the fiscal impact here is in your staff report. This breaks it down between, general fund and some of our enterprise funds. So for the 6 months, January through the end of the fiscal year, it's just under $50,000. That's assuming, no one leaves midpoint, and this is everything else equal. About 2/3 of this is actually paid by our enterprise fund, street fund, water and sewer, which actually did receive the 7.5% utility rate increase. So we already made the adjustments to the rate. Now we're just kind of passing some of that onto the team. The other part is then the general fund. We did talk a lot internally, not just about the ability to pay right now, in the future, because what we never want to do, one, is set up future boards or future staff for failure and handing them a budget crisis. We also don't want to get in the position of, because of that, looking at cuts in service, cuts in the team, or reducing step increases or COLAs. And certainly from what we know, what we can predict and anticipate, that this is reasonable. We can do this. Seth will talk more at the retreat in a couple of weeks about the 5-year projection. And, there's a lot of other things up in the air, fire service and fire district, things that we can do around franchise fees. So certainly we're not putting ourselves into a bind with making this adjustment. And in 2 years, the union contract is up. And as I like to say, we will pay for this one way or the other. We can kind of try to step it up now and, absorb it over time. We can wait for the one-time hit. And in between now and that time, we may lose people, that are essentially trying to say, chasing cash in their pocket. And I don't mean to diminish anyone who does that. There are people who need cash in their pocket. So all the great benefits, the great laughter that we have, our free tea and coffee, only.
Tea and coffee.
Would you like some?
Sorry.
I don't touch the hot chocolate. That's for Becky only. You don't touch.
Well, in that case,
But no, I mean,
Between the hours of 10:15 and 10:30.
it is one of those things that, compensation is only a piece of the puzzle of how and why you attract and retain people, but it is a large piece for people. So we can afford it. Next steps, if approved, we'll make the COLA adjustment for the January payroll. We'll then work on implementing that administrative procedure for a cell phone allowance. So it tracks the hows and the whys for the future people. That'll probably be for the next pay period is when that would probably get implemented. And then we'll continue to work on comping those other 4 positions. So what questions do we have? And there are 2 separate motions, one just, essentially accepting and approving the comp analysis, and then one on the resolution.
So the 6.5%, that's only for the 6-month period?
Well, the costing is for the 6 months. And so we actually adjust the wage scale by 6.5%. So that becomes the new base. So it's not after 6 months, it drops back down.
So the new fiscal year, the new budget.
It's a whole new set.
Okay.
Correct.
And this is kind of based on the fact that there'll also be kind of that 4% COLA in July. And between the 2 COLAs and this one time, that should keep us about where inflation has been over the last 2 or 3 years.
That should get us, that plus or minus 0.1% or 2, which is where you want to be.
And then you'll be building that into the new budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for affordability, one of the things that we're noticing is that for a lot of our revenue sources, we're starting to see inflation hit. I think Northwest Natural Gas has a 11% rate increase. They just got approved from the Public Utility Commission. PG&E asked for 14%. I think the residential is, and we get revenues from that based on their franchise fees, and our business income tax revenues have also been seeing a lot of increase, and some of that is driven by inflation. The only one of our major revenue sources that isn't really impacted is property tax, and that's not gonna.
But even our investments are tracking over 3% now. And so it's returning real money that we didn't anticipate in the budget.
Yeah. And currently you guys are at full staff capacity.
At the moment,
At the moment.
we're
Because I mean, that does speak volumes, right? That coming from another jurisdiction that has had some openings for quite some time. I think that speaks volumes that the city's looking at this and taking a good approach to get ahead of everything, because the burden on other staff members when there is unfilled positions can also take a toll, and sometimes the compensation of money isn't enough.
I have a question. When does our union bargaining come back up again?
The current contract ends June 30, 2025. So we'll be negotiating essentially 2 years from now. We would start that bargaining process, meeting with you in exec session, setting terms, conditions. We got a 5-year contract last time. I like 5-year contracts.
Yeah, I figured you did, but our sister
a big
city just completed one with a 17% increase.
It was 2 to 17%. They did it
Yes,
based
I
on
get
different
that. But the
positions.
high
Yeah,
mark, though, everybody's gonna remember
17%.
17% though. Unfortunately, they're not gonna even think about the 2%. They're gonna think about the 17%. And they're already ahead of us.
Yeah.
According to what I see on this.
Correct.
In my gathering on this. And every once in a while, we have someone that'll jump ship from here and go to one of our sister cities.
Yeah, but we just stole a really good one from Fairview. So
Yeah, I
message
know.
her.
Good job there. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, but that's 3 years away. So I and I realize we work fluid, and we're trying to hit a mark at this point with this motion that you all hope that we have here. So, but I'm always concerned about losing people.
Mhm.
One of the things that I was going to ask for was a longevity chart of how long people have been here.
Oh.
I think that would be something the council would like to have.
We can put that together, and we did this, 6 months ago or a year ago? We actually changed longevity bonuses. So, we've always had it, at the every 5-year mark, 5, 10, 15, 20, et cetera. And it was a really minimal amount. It's actually pretty meaningful now.
I know Becky's been here now almost as long as, no, I won't.
It's over
She'll
11
hit
now,
me.
right? Or is it 12? Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm working on 15.
yeah.
Yeah, well.
And you're close to 5,
That's 5.
4.
Almost 5.
Yeah.
Well, Counselor Clark, your point there about the longevity
Yeah.
chart is whenever I talk about whenever I've been involved in salary conversation, first off, let me just say, this is a thorough report and timely done. And I think the comparisons and the comparables you're using, they're accepted by more than just, you didn't just pull them out of the air. So
No,
I
no.
think those are solid. I would like to see us continue. I believe we need to be in the top 50%. And I would like to see us at some point talk further about that as a council, as a principle that drives either negotiations and our budget conversations. Money isn't everything. The other thing but it is an important place to recruit. The second thing we're doing that I just want to, Greg, you didn't mention it, but we have looked at ways to retain people. And you mentioned one of those. Retention, it costs a lot of money to bring somebody on board, train them up, all the cost of that in staff time. So retaining is really important too. I'd like us to begin thinking about exit interviews with individuals.
We
And-
kind of informally
Yeah.
have done them.
And they're hard to do. I organize some of those and they're hard to do because sometimes people want a reference. So, but anyway, that's for another conversation. But retention is what we should always be thinking about as we think about salaries and we think about how we manage our budget and how we recruit staff. The question specific, so overall, I think it's the right thing to do to stay ahead of the curve, not play catch up. And keep us competitive for just the reasons you said. That we don't want people leaving, and sometimes people will leave for 25 cents an hour, and we're not gonna win those games. But The one question I had is Troutdale.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's my comments about what we're doing here, and I think it makes sense in our organization to what and how we're approaching this. Why is Troutdale so much higher in their wages? I mean, what am I missing here?
Just gonna give me a minute. We're being recorded. I gotta, respond.
I want to hear Becky's answer.
Yeah, I mean, you look across it,
I mean, we've asked ourselves that, like for a town of 16 to 18,000, their wages are more than their comparators. And I like to think that they're probably thinking on your lines. They want to be they probably want to be, that top quartile is probably their thought, because then, again, part of that attracting, retaining the best of the best. Troutdale certainly strives for high quality, and looking at, their ability to pay
Yes, it's way
different, I think, than any other East County city. Actually, person to person per capita is probably best in Multnomah County.
Yeah, it's pretty high. I mean, I was looking at it, but even beyond us.
Now,
The three cities.
that said, again, money's not everything. And there's some people that call it the Troutdale means and methods, the culture.
So
is
they're
the
just
best fit.
budgeting for it.
No, they have a much higher property tax base, and they had a much higher one back in 1995 as well. So
Okay.
they have more money.
Yeah.
So they pay more money.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, they got it.
But one thing we have that really no one else does, and it's in the report, but I didn't highlight it, is our education reimbursement program, which is another great opportunity to retain quality people. And I think we've got a couple, they'll probably take advantage of that in the next year or two, whether it's, looking at a different associates or completing a bachelor's. I myself was a recipient of it. Seth has been a recipient of it. It really does wonders, both for the individual and their growth and development, but us as an organization, again, getting that next level.
And those are the things, again, I couldn't think of them off my top of my head here, but what we've tried to do to retain people and add those to the.
Becky said my singing is actually driving people away, my singing and dancing. So I will not do that except on every other Friday.
Oh, you cut it in half, right? Okay, that's,
Other questions?
oh,
No other questions?
that's awesome.
Is there a motion?
I move to approve the 2022 compensation analysis.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. No opposed? The second motion?
I move to approve resolution 4-2023, making a mid-year cost of living adjustment, authorizing a cell phone allowance and adjustments to the healthcare coverage.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, no opposed.
Thank you very much. It's quite wonderful to bring something like this and having a council that says, recognizes the importance of the team and our collective ability over the decades to be able to afford it. So thank you very
And
much.
It's a big deal to work for an organization that, rather than waiting until you have a collective bargaining and being forced to the table and having it pried out of your cold, dead fingers, to actually be the ones to initiate and be proactive about it.
Yeah, let's be ahead of it.
Yeah.
And just, I mentioned that I'd like to have us see if we can get us into the top.
Quartile.
Yeah, at least 3 or 4, at least number 3 or 4. For the retention as well as the recruiting. So if you guys, staff can think about that as we be going to our budget.
I think, like I said, as we look at the future of fire service, as we look at different models around franchise fees and the like, there may be opportunities. Always make opportunities for it, but those would allow for some breathing room to make more adjustments.
Yeah, at least let's take a look at it. And if we can afford to do that and then set that as a principle of our organization, then we'll have more discussions.
We'll have more discussions. Absolutely.
Okay. I'm back to find my agenda here. All right, the Director of Public Works. John.
You haven't yet?
No.
Mayor, city councilors, thank you. I'm here to present you with the January Public Works recap of 2022. So in your packet, you should have received the director's report. I mean, there was lengthy, the projects, permits, code enforcement, really everything. One thing I really wanted to point out was the code compliance. And I know in 2022, about maybe mid-year, council decided to say, hey, let's take a more proactive approach. As you can see by the numbers from 2021 to 2022, we took a proactive approach. So, and I know during the discussions too, there was a few monumental cases out there. We are working on them. The city manager is working with Troutdale city manager to get in there. The courts.
Just waiting on a court. We have 3 cases to get an administrative abatement warrant. We're just waiting for a court date.
Okay.
So
So
we heard you loud and clear.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious with the numbers here too.
Yeah.
You know, it did help that the byway was completed. So the permit tech and was able to focus on some code compliance. And like I said, it was pretty obvious from 138 cases to 383.
Yeah.
My gosh, you know,
That's a lot.
so we're cleaning up the city.
And John, how are those going for our their code compliance officer, whoever's making those knocking on doors and
It's good. It's a team effort. You know,
no
Jeff helped us out at the beginning, our city attorney. So it made things a little smoother, you know, said, hey, you know, dot this I, cross this T. So that made it easy for our staff too. So, but
when the actual knocking on the door, are there any threats or people?
I'm the one that posted it. So
Okay.
no, it's,
No, nobody's.
you know, and if I'm not available, other staff members would do it.
We try to make it that for the day to day. It's a couple of, the office people
Yeah.
making the letters, sending them out, maybe taking a couple of phone calls. If and when it gets a little bad, nasty, contentious, it's John or myself. We take that off of the front
I
line.
would suspect that.
John will listen his
Myself
tie when
back.
he goes up.
Well,
the door too, if he needs to.
But you know, like I said, it's teamwork.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I know we've had these discussions and certainly I know we all appreciate that enforcement.
Yeah,
because
and part
it's
two,
changing an expectation in the city.
yes,
what
it is.
about.
And also too, the new public engagement and outreach person that we hired is working with our code enforcement person too. So we actually have flyers that we're putting on the vehicles and door hangers that we're using too. So again, just being more proactive, being, you know, out in the community, and just letting folks know that, hey, we see it. If we see it, we're gonna, you know, make an effort to clean it up.
And I just want to reinforce something we've talked about when we were talking about this code is if people need a little help to clean something up, you certainly, let's make sure we can give them that little help to get them over the edge. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And also too, I wanted to point out the production of water. My gosh, 84 million gallons of water. That's the most since I've been here. in
And only
5
half
years.
of that from the splash
I
pad.
was gonna say.
Oh, that's funny.
No, really, it's just, and you know, and the master plan's coming along. Hopefully in the next couple months, we'll be able to bring those in front of council and you'll see what our water system is in pretty good shape. So again, 184 million gallons. Our roads, our residential streets are in good condition. Pavement condition index of 76. Again, that's you approving, you know, allocations for those capital projects each year. We know we've been kind of limited the last 3-4 years with the Cedar Lane project, the overrun on the Cedar Lane that we kind of borrowed from. But you know, in the next couple of years, that'll come to an end and we can really make some higher investments. And let's raise that PCI above 80 and have great streets. So and what it comes down to, it's staff. It's staff that's out there doing the work, day in and day out, from water, sewer, streets, parks to code compliance to permits, building, and the finance support that we're getting from Seth and his team. So again, it's about staff.
Well, we got some youngsters there we're training. Is that what we're doing? Internships.
Subcontractors.
Independent subcontract.
Yes.
Yeah, no benefits.
So again, in the packet, robust list. If you have any comments, questions, let me know. Other than that, that's my presentation for January.
I just want to point out, John does a great job of tracking great statistics throughout the year. One thing we still don't track very well is how much, garbage we pick up, off the street. Probably doesn't compare to Mayor Minor, what he picks up off the street. But whether it's litter patrol, dumped couch, tires, we pick that up. And then just the amount of graffiti that's been cleaned up the past year has just been, it's been exceptional in that there's been so much, but it's also been exceptional in how quickly we're responding to it and removing it. And all you have to do is kind of look around at, some neighboring jurisdictions, and you can tell when you've crossed over to a different city. It looks different. It feels different here. And as such, we're not getting as much repeat, offenses with litter, graffiti, dumping, because we try to keep it neat and clean.
Yes, Councilor.
As you well know, when you get to 8% or higher in system loss, I was going to go on that. You get higher than that, then you really need to start looking for where's the inconsistency with that? Is that in a master meter that's not reading properly? A lot of times it could be with or something like that, or was there a meter broken or do you have?
So, yes. So really, and we're going through our SCADA overhaul.
I've read somewhere
Yes,
difficulties where.
so we're making a huge investment, over $250,000 investment in our SCADA system. So we are looking at our system as a whole. But there's some question marks with the current SCADA system as we move away from that. That will be the comparator when we get the new SCADA system, is to see where that is.
Okay.
Again, we're not pulling that information. Our SCADA integrator is.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of question marks, and there's reasons why we're moving away from our current system and making this huge $250,000 investment to our SCADA.
I don't see water running down the road is my point, right? And we've got
Absolutely.
meters on all the park stuff now. And we've got great meters in the ground. So I don't see where we should have this type of.
And we've had those discussions internally. We're also looking at that when we do some flushing activities, we are probably plus or minus.
That should be like no more than 2%.
But we can do some improvements to how we're measuring that to make sure that is a good or a better number than what we have now. But as John said, we want to wait till we get the new SCADA on board where we know that the production numbers are the production numbers, compare it to the meter reading numbers. And then that should give us a really good snapshot of how real is or isn't this number, because we've gone all around the city trying to find where this loss could be, and we're scratching our heads.
Also, just to note, the statistics that John reports is based on consumption that we metered, billed, and well production. And we also have, in the last year and a half, added a meter at our reservoir that's actually measuring what's leaving the reservoir, which is a better guesstimate of what's being used. And we had a couple of months where we were missing that data, but I was able to look at about 6 months or so, and it does drop the percentage when you use that number in the calc a couple of percent. So that's probably part of it too. And hopefully once we get through the full SCADA upgrade and can be having some consistent data that we believe is valid, then they'll give us a better look at it all.
The only other thing I can think of is that an intertie with one of our cities.
We actually just checked them last week.
Okay.
They're everything's fine.
And we're not seeing anyone, there's no hydrant meters, illicit hydrant meters, or, I mean, it's been going on for, 12 months of some higher numbers than we would have liked or what we had been seeing.
Yeah, it's been
And
about
short
Not in
of
one particular month either.
water bubbling out of somewhere, we're
Yeah.
just not seeing it.
Yeah,
So again, I think
yeah, you're on top of
it's,
it.
it's something to be, a yellow flag's up. It's not red yet.
Yeah. You just
wait
can't
till we
find
get-
that culprit.
Or get in our, new SCADA, and
Okay.
then when we can pull that information and we're not depending on one integrator to provide us that information, that we can collect it as a staff ourselves and look at that data.
John, remind me again the timeline on that. Is that,
The new SCADA,
yeah,
I mean, it's in process now.
yeah, we're in the
It-
process.
It
but,
should be completed October, November 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're
All
doing
right.
incremental. So right now we're going to launch a whole new kind of in the field hardware component in the next week or two. But then it'll just be as new hardware components come in for other bits and bobs, it'll, as John said, wrap up, October, November.
It's going to be very interesting when
I
that
don't
gets
think
fully.
any- Sorry.
Do those comparisons on that.
Yeah.
On that system loss, because then if it still is above that 10%, we have to do some serious investigating.
And the other part of that, I know that none of you were on the council when we were driving this force many years ago. Each one of these meters that are out in front of people's homes and businesses are cash registers. And we have to treat them as such. And so we work very hard to maintain them properly. We thought that we were going to, when we went out there and replaced them, we thought we were going to find our cash cow, so to speak. And it turned out that although they had been out there for many, many years, they were all very accurate, it turned out. So it was like, oh my gosh, we spent, a lot of money to replace them. And that didn't proved out to be our problem.
We did on our, 4 and 6 inch meters.
Yes,
We
yes,
did
the big
find,
ones.
the
Yeah.
big ones.
Yes,
But yeah, a lot of the, 3/4 to 1 inch.
yeah. We were hoping that those were going to really be able to find those minimum waters. Now I know that the mayor's hungry, so we're supposed to move. So, I can hear him grumble, his tummy growling right now, so.
Yeah, I can control that, so I can move along the
Yeah,
discussion.
so,
Questions? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I just want to say that thanks, to John and his team, they do an amazing job. They even help out other jurisdictions. I called in about a tree that had fell on the Wood Village Boulevard. The next day it was removed. So again, that just a testament to their level of responsiveness and, not because it's on county road, they're still willing to do the work because they understand that it's our city. And so just kudos to him and his team.
Yeah.
It shows.
we have buy-in, our city, our staff are buying in, it's our city. It's not a county, they don't see it as a county road. They see it, hey, it's in our city limits. We're going to take care of it. So.
Our little 5-gallon bucket that my wife and I pick up litter on Wood Village Boulevard daily is just a little drop in the bucket compared to what you're doing and how fast you guys are responding to the city. John, thank you. There's no other questions.
Thank you.
Well, let's get the money man back.
Mr. Mayor, Council. Included in your packet was the finance director's report through the December 31st. This represents half of our year's spending, so it's kind of a good opportunity to kind of gauge where we're at. So far, all of our expenditures are under budget. We are going to have a payment for our PERS contribution that you guys authorized in the last budget cycle that's going to be hitting, and so that number will skew up a little bit because that's a one-time payment. But all of our revenues are tracking. Property taxes came in very well this year. So well, we're a little concerned that about what happened. We ended up getting about a 5% bump on the city side, which would represent about a development about half the size of Riverwood coming on the books. And so we're reaching out to the county to find out maybe it's something happened on our centrally assessed utilities or bank error in your favor. We're scratching our heads a little bit about that, but we're also not going to press too hard in case they find something.
If they don't pick up the phone, don't call back.
Yeah. In addition, BIT revenue is coming in very healthily. We haven't seen any dip in that. That's almost a 20% increase over last 2 years. So well, knock on wood that will all go well. As Greg mentioned, our investments continue to tick up. We're about 3% this last month on our investment returns. Our interest returns, that's going to go up to 3 1/3%. Actually went up on there on January 6th. So we're going to see that as an additional source of revenue that was planned. And in other news, we received our Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from Government Office.
Oh, good.
Surprising because they called and asked if we had paid. And I said, I thought that was part of the application. You couldn't actually submit it until it paid, so we hadn't. So we paid them, and then this showed up in the mail the next week. Normally we get a email or some sort of outreach
Letter.
This just showed up, and I'm like, I didn't order anything, and so that's what popped out. So from all of our finance staff last year, and we still have some process improvement they want to undertake this year, but we're pleasantly surprised that we had got the award, and we'll incorporate all the feedback that we got from them.
Well, Seth, that's great. And the report tonight, the audit, there were no comments. So that, was a piece of what you're getting that award for. So hold that up again. Is that the one that we, that Polly?
It looks kind of like the audit award, but they just changed the color and put budget on it.
Okay.
So,
well, congratulations.
Yeah, this was our first run at it, thinking we'd get some comments and things we can adjust for this year's budget. And to get it on the first shot was quite remarkable. And it really is a testament. This is something Seth had asked, he wanted to do it not to get an award, not to get recognized, doing it because it's a good practice to do, because getting the award means your budget is easier to digest for the everyday person in the community. And it really sets where the investments of the community's money to the community's goals. And we had a very tight timeline with the later retreat and the budget priorities. He worked tirelessly to put together a whole overhaul of that budget within about a month. And to get that award,
fun month.
it's really something beyond words, and shows the quality of Seth and his team.
Well, that's great. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, it's the real one. All right, there's the real one.
And with that concludes my report. If you guys have any questions, be happy to fill you in on any.
More people need to be smoking more, or is that what? No, that was in December of 20. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I get that. Oh, they're back up again.
Okay.
We used to tease about that kind of stuff.
Well, I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've gone up on that. Yeah,
Whatever we get the most from.
yeah, it's in there. It's in there. Yeah, they have to hide it.
Get some cigarette machines out here, so.
For the marijuana,
Yeah, they have to.
Cigarettes out here.
the liquor revenues.
Yeah.
Oh,
Since we only have one operator in our community, so we get a state share plus then a share of the local, but because we only have one local, so people can't backdoor the way into what the revenues are.
Yeah.
It's a combined number.
I see.
Yeah.
So drinking more and
Not
smoking
independent, I
marijuana
didn't
more.
demand.
No, I'm not hiding. No, we're supposed to hide it.
Yeah.
They can't tell us what it is.
Actually, I mean,
Oh, really?
Seriously.
authorized to see the number.
No kidding.
Yeah, they took an oath.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
They really did. They took an oath.
Hey, don't ask me questions about how much money we get from marijuana.
Yeah.
Well, I can't ask you.
But you can, I'll just.
Can't answer it.
You can ask.
Why?
Yeah,
why-
but if you ask
Sorry, I
twice,
think
they tell you to call this 800 number, and on the third time they shoot you.
It's the same,
Yeah.
it's the same with the business income tax that we get collected. We can't ask Portland where like numbers for particular businesses because they won't give it to us because it's considered a trade secret
Oh,
proprietary to their business.
interesting.
Legally protected.
Yeah. And you think I'm kidding, don't you?
Well, I was like, Mark. It's okay to say weed. It's still or whatever.
No, it's fine. I remember that conversation with Jane and Mary. Remember that? When
I'd forgotten about that.
Mary Jane?
Mary Jane.
Mary Jane. Okay. All right, Greg,
I cannot top a budget award and I don't want to top a discussion on marijuana or its revenues. I do want to point out, I'm not going to really touch a lot on the APP because we're going to go over that in more detail here in a couple of weeks at our retreat. But I do want to point out one thing that we're working towards, that community outreach and engagement effort. And Seth has done a great job reaching out to some jurisdictions that have done some robust efforts and gave us some lessons learned. And we're going to touch on that at the retreat, but it looks different than I think we originally envisioned and talked about a year ago. It also looks and feels much better just from kind of the 50,000 foot level of what we'll plan to do. It just feels better. So let's know we haven't ignored it. We've just been working on how to make this meaningful. And I think we've got a good direction on it now.
For my help, is that meeting going to be held here?
Yes. Oh, yeah. You weren't part of the setting of the meeting at all, were you?
I kind of looked for it and I didn't see it.
It's February 11th
Yeah, that
here.
part I got.
8
I just
o'clock.
didn't know where.
Yep, here. And it's a new facilitator, Martha. And I mean with her Friday to go over kind of the agenda, run of show, and she plans to move us all around the room, the space. So
Bring your running shoes.
but if you want.
Run the mile.
The idea is to be comfortable. That's always the goal. And on that spirit of new things, council photos, council meeting. So I'll send an email out because we'll do little 15-minute appointments starting at 5 o'clock to get your new headshot. And so it'll be on the wall of counselors in the mayor council conference room, new photo for our new mayor. So I could tell Lene, Councilor Amen, you're really looking forward to that.
Oh, dang, gotta brush my hair.
So just want to represent, it's your headshot. So it's, on our website, it's on the wall.
We're also having Hawaiian shirt night in honor of former Council President Bruce Nissen that night.
Oh, that's.
That was a joke. Yeah, he just had a habit of whenever it was picture night showing up in one of his Hawaiian shirts and not remember.
That were homemade, as
Yeah.
it turned out too. We'll be having a few adjustments to your agenda starting at the next meeting. So we always put in like the next council meeting at the bottom there. We're also going to add other meetings and, community events to that list.
Oh,
So for the next month or so, you'll have a good idea of whether it's a council meeting, parks planning, community event, something of, maybe it's a community-wide one, but something of note. So that'll be in that list, just for your information.
and Greg, yeah, I appreciate that. And the other reason for that too, is that as we start to have these events, then we can know who might be able to attend an event or who may not be able to attend an event. I've had that conversation with actually all three of you, and stuff like that came up. So, and it came up directly from you, Councilor, and then too, that it would help us make sure that we try to have a council member at these events. So it's not to say you're required to be there, but I appreciate you putting those on there. So
Yeah, just helping with that overall picture and, again, so you all can make informed decisions. My last update is, and it comes from the natural leaders, they want to start doing some health clinics and community-based, some health initiatives and efforts. Part of that is launching diabetes screening at our Easter egg hunt. I thought that was fitting. The event with the most candy. Working with them to have a table and booth set up so they can start that. And then thereafter, they want to do monthly health clinics here at City Hall. So I'm working with them on, dates, times, all of that. Just wanted to run it past you just to make sure there's no issue with using this space. It seemed like it fit the council's broad goal of expanding our outreach and engagement while not leading the effort. So I figured, let's go ahead and start booking this space. But again, just wanted to run it past you all and make sure that fits with your broader goals and objectives.
Great news. This
Yeah.
diabetic screening especially.
I think that's also a great opportunity if we're looking to get community input, if they're already drawing community members here, why not utilize that opportunity as well and say, hey, could you ask them a few questions on our behalf, you know? we
And
would
that's
be-
one of the strategies we'll talk about the retreat that Seth gleaned from, not just looking at a city event, but what other events by other organizations are already going on that you can leverage opportunities for. And not trying to steal the thunder and give it all away, but they've, some of those cities have then seen increased engagement, especially then at board levels, interest in council, because you're starting to get them at that grassroots level, which gets to your last meeting about, how do we grow some of these next people?
Yeah, yeah. Recruiting fairs in disguise.
Yeah, covered with shaved ice and cotton candy. That's my report. Any questions I can answer? Oh,
Mayor and council comments, so I'm gonna let the council make any comments that I do have a couple.
I just want to mention that I attended Senator Wyden's town hall.
Oh, good.
It was pretty well attended. I was able to meet Gresham council members that I hadn't met before. So I think that was a great opportunity. And he shared some great initiatives and projects that his office is doing with transportation. He talked about public safety and a program called Cahoots, I think in the areas of Eugene, but trying to do something different out here with the Multnomah County. So I think they got some pretty awesome opportunities coming up our way. So
I had that on my calendar. I just had it on there a day later. My wife and I went over there, found a place to park, and we thought, well, this is not so bad at parking here. There's not a lot of cars. Walked in there and walked all the way into the office. Said, how do we get to the auditorium for Senator Wyden? Well, you're a day late. So,
$5 short. Huh?
yeah, so anyway, but that's great. Others? Comments? Let me, and I'm gonna, Mark, let me ask you about the MUCTUC meeting.
Oh,
Because one of the things that I'm aware of is that the regional transportation plan, we heard last night that the projects there are due February
14th, I believe.
14th.
Yes. Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's, I know it was on the agenda, but as you work through that, would you bring us back some information about that? So we know what projects are in the queue possibly.
Sure.
I mean, we won't know for sure, but I know that that's one of the things that.
They did ask for us to, if our cities had any projects that they wanted to bring forth, this was our opportunity to do so. And we had till the end of February, was it, John?
Yeah. Middle, I think it was middle to end of February.
Since it was my first meeting in many, many years, I kind of felt like that if you had anything that you wanted to bring up, you might have brought it up prior. to
Yeah,
this.
no, I didn't
know.
have anything. I just wanted to
And
know.
I saw that they were chock full of projects.
Okay,
And looked like to me that if we were going to put any projects in now, they would have been for the next 10 years from now.
yeah, no, I
Am
didn't.
I right, John? And
You're absolutely correct.
And
Some clarity on the projects themselves. So Multnomah County sent us a list of essentially projects, I'll call it in the region, some crossed over to, Fairview, Troutdale. Nothing really heavy in Wood Village because they've already spent a lot of time overhauling our roads here. So they're kind of on the peripheral. The other thing the three cities are working on is again, Main Streets on Halsey, because we're going through that transportation growth management plan right now to look at the street template. That's not going to be done for about a year or so. So what we're working with the county and ODOT is acknowledging that we will want to make some changes, enhancements, but doing it more of in a bubble fashion, given that there won't be something very specific. And that would be the only city specific ask on the RTP is part of that Main Streets on Halsey effort.
right. And then the other part is that I've been catching up with all of the other projects that they've got going,
oh, yeah.
the whole region wise. So.
Yeah. Well, and staff does a good job of staying ahead of that too. So John stays on top of that technical pieces that are coming from it. One action item, actually. We have, Mark is now serving on a MUCTUC. And he was welcome back there, and I'm sure they're gonna find good use from Mark. He knows a lot about those areas, so glad to have him step forward and serve on that. So I do want to take action on that, and I received a note from Scott. And Scott would like to continue on as our rep for the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory. And he's done that in the past. He's been active on that. He did resign. I think he was trying to narrow the scope of obligations he had, but he did. And he wrote me a note just asking, and I'm writing today with the hope that the rest of the city council would find value in reappointing me to the Mount Hood Cable Regulatory Commission. So without any objection to that, I'd like to take action on both appointing Mark as a representative for Mucktuck and appointing Scott Hart as our representative for the Cable Regulatory. Motion?
Motion.
Yeah, so moved. So moved.
Second?
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, good. All right, thanks for that. And the last thing I have is I'm going to be virtual the second meeting of February and the first meeting of March. We'll be traveling, and I'll be either on my way down to Texas or in Texas. And then I'll be back, and my goal is to be back by the second meeting in March, but that all depends on travel and some work that I'm going to be doing down there for my son.
So depending on if you're connected or not, you're going to council president?
And we'll work
conduct
that
the
out
meeting?
with, Jairo and I are going to be in contact. So,
Okay.
and I'll be in contact with Greg, but virtually, usually when I do this, I plan my trip. So I'm in a service area, so I can do them virtual. So, but anyway, that's,
Really doing it as a favor to us to test robustness of the new hotspot, see how good.
yeah, I'm constantly out there trying to, sacrifice myself for the betterment of this community.
Thank you for your bravery.
There's nothing else.
Last thing, this Thursday, there is a TriMed / Metro / Main Streets on Halsey TGM grant open house at the Fairview City Hall from 5 to 7. So Metro, what they'll be doing is they will be updating the community on a open house they did in October of the new routes services that they are looking to implement with some reductions in other areas and a proposed fare increase. And so they want to hear the community's input on that. So that's an open house 5 to 7 at the Fairview City Hall, and there'll be others there as well. Metro have some 5-year transportation forecast, I believe, and I'm not sure.
Main Streets will just kind of do a introduction to the upcoming TGM process. More getting, since there'll be people there interested in transportation and, bus lines and things, is kind of a teaser of, hey, get some things on your calendar for upcoming meetings and events.
Will that be on our calendar?
The Main Street stuff will, the Halsey, the TriMet one says this Thursday won't be because it's,
Okay.
but yeah, I can send an email though for a reminder.
And it's open to the community, so you more than welcome to and encourage, because again, there's some good stuff there.
And the last thing somebody's gonna follow up, Greg, you're gonna follow up with the February 2nd.
For the February 2nd event, I'll make sure you get all the information, details, location, time,
Excellent. Yeah. Okay.
all the good stuff.
Our city attorney, I didn't mean to overlook you down there, but anything know about?
Well, I was going to congratulate Councillor Clark on his resounding electoral victory over Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse, and the other write-in candidates in November. Yes, yeah, Valerie.
That was the biggie.
Welcome back, Mark. Is this like your third time?
Fourth or fifth, I think. Yeah, depending on how you look at it. This is the first time we've been written in, and my wife and I didn't even vote. Yeah. I mean, we left it blank. We'd already sent ours in, so yeah.
Yeah, he's now been on council every way possible.
Yeah.
Being
And
appointed and a write-in.
And then I also lost an election too. So that's where I beat Scott.
All right, well. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
I congratulate you on your election too.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Our condolences, one of the two.
Oh, yeah. We're adjourned. Thank you.
I didn't have a gray hair when I got on the council.